Welcome to another deep dive where we take your source material and really get into the nitty-gritty.
Really explore it.
Yeah, exactly. So today we're diving into the history of swearing
Ooh, fun.
with Melissa Moore's book, Holy Shot, A Brief History of Swearing. We'll be looking at how swear words have evolved.
Right. From ancient Rome to today.
Yeah, and how what's considered obscene has totally changed over time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, what might have been taboo for the Romans wouldn't even faze us today.
So what kind of things did make the Romans blush?
Oh, for them, it wasn't so much about dirty words.
Okay.
It was more about disrupting religious rites or saying things that were considered bad luck.
Oh, so like spilling salt or breaking a mirror.
Exactly. Those kinds of superstitions that we might laugh at now were serious business back then.
Right. But, okay, Moore's book talks about this Roman fascination with the phallus.
Oh, yes.
They had gods with, well, prominent features.
Right.
Brides sitting on phallus statues. It's a lot. Why were they so into it?
Well, you have to remember the cultural context. For the Romans, the phallus was a symbol of fertility and power. They even used it in curses and charms.
Like a good luck charm.
Yeah. Just a little more anatomically explicit.
Right, a very bold good luck charm.
Yeah.
Moore also tells this story about the Roman poet Martial, who basically said his writing can't please without a cock.
Wow.
But then he tried to maintain this public image of virtue.
It seems like the Romans had a complicated relationship with sexuality.
Yeah, trying to balance those two worlds. So we've got phalluses, and now let's move on to the Bible,
Okay.
where the idea of swearing is more about oaths than obscene words.
Right. In the Bible, oaths were incredibly important.
And God actually encourages swearing by his name.
Exactly. Which might seem odd at first.
Yeah.
But it was all about asserting dominance over other gods.
It's like a pledge allegiance to me kind of thing.
Exactly. There was a lot of religious competition back then.
What about those other gods like Baal and Moloch? Were they seen as real or just powerless idols?
That's a tricky one.
Okay.
The Bible seems to have mixed feelings about it.
Like it can't decide.
Yeah, sometimes they're portrayed as powerless, but other times they're hints they might have some influence.
So a bit of a divine power struggle going on.
Definitely.
Okay, so from Roman phalluses to a god who likes a good oath,
Now let's fast forward to medieval England.
where oaths were even more offensive than words for sex or bodily functions.
It's the opposite of what we think of as taboo today.
Right, but why?
Well, oaths were central to medieval society.
Okay,
They guaranteed loyalty, ensured contracts were kept.
so they held everything together.
Exactly. Breaking an oath was like breaking a promise to God himself.
High stakes. But Moore mentions this hilarious story about the Lindisfarne Gospels, where a priest uses the phrase, "Don't sard another man's wife."
Absurd.
Yeah. Can you imagine a priest saying that today?
It's amazing how the meaning of words changes over time.
Right. What was once offensive can become funny centuries later.
And challenging those oaths was seen as a threat to the entire social order.
It's like those groups who refuse to swear oaths like the Lollards.
Oh, yes, the Lollards. They believed all oaths were forbidden.
They were real rebels.
They were, and it shows just how powerful those oaths were.
So we've gone from Romans flashing their good luck charms to medieval folks terrified of breaking a vow.
What a journey.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
When do we see the shift toward our modern idea of obscenity?
Things start to change in the Renaissance.
Yeah.
This is where obscene words step into the spotlight as the power of oaths starts to decline.
So less holy and more shit.
You could say that.
But what caused this shift?
Several things contributed. The rise of Protestantism, the decline of feudalism,
Okay.
but maybe most importantly, people's ideas about what was shameful started to change.
So it's not just about the words, but about the underlying social anxieties.
Exactly. And in the Renaissance, we see this growing emphasis on privacy and decorum.
Like those Victorians who covered up piano legs.
Yes, and they developed all these elaborate euphemisms to avoid talking directly about the body.
Like they were embarrassed by it.
In a way, yes. It's a far cry from those Romans and their unabashed displays.
Talk about a complete 180. So from phallus-worshipping Romans to oath-fearing medievals to body-shunning Victorians.
What a wild ride through the history of shame.
How did we get from there to our more liberal use of obscenities today?
Well, to understand that, we need to look at the evolution of obscenity laws.
Ooh, legal drama.
Especially in the U.S.
Okay.
It's a fascinating journey through court cases and cultural clashes.
Sounds like we're about to get into some legal trouble.
Buckle up. All right, so let's dive into these legal cases that really shaped how we view obscenity today.
Okay, I'm ready to put on my judge's robes.
First up, we have United States v. One book called Ulysses from 1933.
Ulysses? That's James Joyce, right?
The one and only.
I tried reading it once. It's, dense.
Yeah, it's not exactly a light beach read.
So what landed it in court?
Well, it got snagged by U.S. Customs for being obscene.
Because of the language.
Yeah, the book is full of frank depictions of sexuality and, of course, plenty of four-letter words.
It was a different time.
Oh, absolutely. This case was huge because it challenged the idea that any book with obscene material could be banned.
So it's about context, right?
Exactly. The court ultimately sided with Joyce, arguing that you have to consider a work's artistic merit and its overall message.
Not just isolated words.
It's like those Roman phalluses we talked about.
Yeah,
It's all about context.
So context is king. What's the next case on our docket?
All right, next up we have Cohen v. California from 1971.
Okay, what happened in California?
This one involves a young man, Paul Cohen, who wore a jacket that said "fuck the draft" to a Los Angeles courthouse.
Ooh, bold move.
Right, and he got arrested for it.
Wait, seriously? For wearing a jacket?
Well, California argued that his jacket was offensive conduct and could incite violence.
They compared it to shouting fire in a crowded theater.
Which seems like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, a jacket's not exactly a fire hazard.
The Supreme Court agreed. They overturned Cohen's conviction, saying his jacket was a form of political expression protected by the First Amendment.
So even swear words can be political.
Absolutely. In this case, it was Cohen expressing his feelings about the Vietnam War and the draft.
Powerful stuff. And the court said he had the right to express those feelings, even if it meant using a word like fuck.
It all comes back to context and intent.
Free speech for the win.
There.
So we've gone from a book ban to a jacket protest. What's next on our legal journey?
Next, we have FCC v. Pacifica Foundation from 1978.
This one rings a bell. Is it about George Carlin?
You got it! The case revolved around his famous 7 dirty words routine.
Oh, yeah. The words you can't say on television.
That's the one.
Clear.
So a New York radio station aired Carlin's monologue, and a listener complained to the FCC.
Because of the language?
Yep. They said it was indecent and unsuitable for broadcast.
So it wasn't about banning swear words outright, but more about when and where they could be used.
Exactly. It sparked a debate about whether the FCC could control what was said on the airwaves.
Interesting. So what did the Supreme Court say?
They sided with the FCC, upholding their right to regulate indecent material on broadcast media.
So no more 7 dirty words on the radio.
Well, not during times when children might be listening.
It's all about protecting those innocent ears.
Right. The court's reasoning was that the airwaves are a public resource.
So accessible to everyone, including children.
Exactly. And that means there should be some limits on what can be broadcast.
Makes sense. So these 3 cases really laid the groundwork for how we think about obscenity today.
They established some key principles like context, intent, and the idea that certain words can be offensive but not necessarily dangerous.
We've come a long way from those banned books and arrested protesters.
We have. And yet the debate about free speech and what's considered obscene continues.
Especially in the age of the internet.
Oh yeah, the internet has changed everything.
It's like a free-for-all of swearing.
Right, you see it everywhere, from memes to comment sections to social media.
It's made me less sensitive to certain words. Honestly, they just don't have the same impact anymore.
That's a common observation. And it raises an interesting question. As certain obscenities lose their shock value, what's next? What will be the new go-to words for expressing those strong emotions?
Yeah, it's weird, right? We're bombarded with swear words more than ever.
And they don't seem to have the same power anymore.
Like they've lost their edge.
Exactly. It's like that saying, familiarity breeds contempt.
Or maybe in this case, familiarity breeds indifference.
Right. Think about those medieval oaths we talked about.
Like God's wounds and by God's bones.
Exactly. They used to be so powerful.
But now they just sound silly.
They've become these quaint little expressions like zounds and egad.
Like they went through the linguistic wash cycle and got all softened up.
Precisely. And we see the same thing happening with obscenities.
Like damn.
Damn used to be a really shocking word.
Now it's practically punctuation.
It's like that harmless old uncle who tells off-color jokes.
Everyone knows he doesn't mean any harm.
A perfect analogy. It just goes to show that language is constantly evolving.
What's taboo today might be totally normal tomorrow.
So if those classic obscenities are becoming less obscene, what's next? What will be the new swear words of the future?
Good question. Maybe we'll go back to those religious swear words.
Like God's teeth and by the Holy Virgin?
It'd be like a linguistic time warp.
It's possible. But we might also see entirely new taboos emerging.
based on our changing values and anxieties.
Exactly. Like, think about how sensitive we've become to issues of gender identity and cultural appropriation.
Right, so maybe the new swear words will be things like, that's so cisnormative, or stop appropriating my culture.
It's fascinating how the things we find offensive reveal our deepest values.
Like swear words are a mirror reflecting our fears and anxieties.
Absolutely. And as our society continues to change, so will the language of taboo.
Who knows what shocking new words will emerge?
The possibilities are endless.
Well, this deep dive into the history of swearing has been a wild ride.
It's amazing how much these seemingly simple words can tell us about ourselves.
They're like little time capsules capturing our history and culture.
So the next time you hear someone swear, don't just dismiss it as vulgarity.
Listen closely, and you might just hear the echoes of ancient anxieties and those evolving ideas of what's taboo.
It's a reminder that language is alive and constantly changing.
Well, a big thank you to you, dear listener, for suggesting this fascinating topic.
And if you want to explore the world of swearing even further, be sure to check out Melissa Moore's Holy Shirt.
It's a truly eye-opening read. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those tongues, well, maybe not too sharp.